So today my guest is Connie Carmichael, and she is the director of Living at Home and also the, shall I say, the president of the Senior Citizens
No, I'm
Center?
the secretary.
The secretary of the Senior Citizens Center
Correct.
in Park Rapids. So, Connie, those are two very great organizations here, and we're all very thankful here in the community to have somebody like you to run those.
Well, thank you.
Let's get right into the acquisition of a new building. It's very exciting.
It is very exciting. We're very, very blessed.
Yes.
So I have been with Living at Home for 10 years. And this is our third, since I started, this is our third office building that we've rented. And so I've always had kind of this blue sky vision of a place that's all our own, that we can have like a senior connections hub, if you will, where we can have senior center activities and education events and hopefully, many different things, including our Living at Home offices. We have so many activities within Living at Home, and the community is great by providing us space, but it's not maybe the most efficient use of our time and resources to be able to run all over. So we've always had a vision of having our own space. We didn't know when that was going to happen or how it was going to happen. And I have actually been searching for a building for a long time, but there was nothing that met our need here in Park Rapids currently. And then all of a sudden, North Star Orthodontics closed their doors for many different reasons. And I kind of approached the owner and said, are they going to be selling the building? Do you know what's happening? Could I be on that list? And they weren't sure what was going to happen. And then I think it was in February this year, Cindy Kelly said, do you want to have coffee? And I said, sure. And she said,
Cindy Kelly is
the owner of the building. She was not the owner of the business at the time, but she is the owner of the building. And I said, sure, I'd love to have coffee. So we sat down and she said, I figured out what I'm going to do with the building. And I said, really? And I was just hopeful, and she said, I want to donate it to Living at Home.
Wow. That is amazing.
I was blown. I think we both cried a little, I got all shaky. It was such an exciting
what a tremendous donation.
Her Cindy and John Kelly have been such pillars of the community for many, many, many years. They've given back in many, many different ways. And John passed away quite a few years ago. And so Cindy's continued on with her legacy. And so that's how we came to own the building. So we closed on the building on June 13th. It was really interesting because at the same time that she kind of offered us the building, I also got word from the state that there was some extra grant opportunities available. And so I talked to the people at the state, and they loved the idea of my blue sky vision and what we wanted to do with this program, and said, write the grant. And I wrote two, actually, and they were both successful. So we have quite a pot of money for renovations, although it's not enough. It never is enough, right? We have to do some HVAC things in there that we didn't know we were going to have to do, but we're still moving forward, and renovations will be starting hopefully within the next several weeks, with hopes that we can move in for Living at Home offices and senior center style activities, hopefully sometime yet before the end of the year.
Wow, that's incredible how quickly it all happened.
Yeah, it seems like it's been slow, but when you think that we just closed on the building in June, it really is moving along quite quickly.
So for those who don't know, what is Living at Home? Like, what's its mission statement, and
Okay.
what services does it provide?
Sure. So Living at Home has been a program for 32 years, started under the auspices of Hubby Community Council, and then that was in 1992, and then in 2000, the powers that be at the time created an independent 501c3 called Living at Home. And so we serve seniors. And so our mission is to mobilize volunteers to enable seniors to remain living in the home of their choice for as long as possible. I like to say as safely as possible, although we're not the safety police, but we do build relationships with our clients and open up conversations, that surround safety and many other different factors that affect seniors today. We provide a multitude of services for seniors, including transportation and friendly visiting and grocery shopping and errands. We have a huge caregiver support program. That is probably over half of our clients now are in our caregiver support program, most of whom are caring for somebody with dementia, whether it's a spouse or a son or a daughter or some other family member.
So this is supporting the person who's providing the care.
Correct. So
what does that entail?
Well, we have a full-time caregiver support coach, Jill Grimes, who's wonderful at her job. We're so blessed to have her. She has years and years and years of experience, but it's individualized support. So when they have, a concern or a need or a new diagnosis and they just don't know anything about dementia or how to even think about what the future is going to hold for them, they can call us and we get them signed up into our program with Jill, and she walks along on their journey. So, dementia can be very difficult, but there's moments of joy, and Jill helps them find those moments of joy as well.
So when would be the appropriate time to contact Jill or Living at Home after? Would it be after there's been a diagnosis, or if there's just a concern that a person might?
Even concerns. We have a lot of caregivers on our list that don't even have a diagnosis yet.
Okay.
They know that there's memory loss.
Yeah.
Maybe they have a mild cognitive impairment diagnosis, but not an Alzheimer's diagnosis. Or maybe they're just concerned. The spouse maybe is concerned. So we recommend that they call whenever they start to have concerns, but certainly after a diagnosis, because many times they're given this diagnosis and they're like, oh my gosh, now what do I do?
Yeah.
Who do I call? What comes next? And honestly, we're told by the medical community that most doctors, unless they specialize in Alzheimer's, most doctors have 8 hours or less in all of their years of training on memory loss and Alzheimer's.
Wow.
And Alzheimer's is the leading cause of memory loss in the nation.
Yeah.
There's over 100. So people often are confused with Alzheimer's versus dementia.
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Yeah, dementia is an umbrella term. And under the umbrella of dementia, there's over 100 different diagnoses. And Alzheimer's is the leading one. It's the top one.
Yeah.
So that's the one we hear about the most.
What are some of the other ones?
Well, there's different ones. There's, and I'm not as versed as Jill is, so I can give you the names and what they're about. But I would encourage people to do a little bit of research, and if they have questions, to call Jill. But there's frontal temporal. There's vascular.
Okay.
There's vascular would be something like memory loss related to a stroke.
I see.
And there's just so many. I can't even begin to talk about all of them. However, I will point out that we have a dementia-friendly community initiative going on in our community. We've had it since 2018, and there's different things that's involved with that. And the biggest thing is education. We did a survey in 2018 of 11 different sectors in our community, and there were questions on there like, do you know what dementia is? Do you know who you would call if you have a dementia diagnosis? What if you just were concerned? Who would you turn to? Well, what we found in that survey is that many of the people, the overwhelming answer for almost everything was, I don't really know. But if they had concerns, they would talk to their doctor. But that's for a diagnosis, but who do you turn to if you have questions about something else? And it was always probably living at home or I don't know. So we kind of have it a mission that we want to educate the community. We want to raise awareness and reduce the stigma of a dementia diagnosis.
Yeah. Okay.
And so we had our first big education event 3 years ago, and we had Teepa Snow, who's a national international expert on dementia. She's wonderful. And then last year we had Dr. Terry Barclay from Health Partners, and they do all day, like in-person trainings. And when we had Teepa Snow the first year, we had 200 people. Last year we had Dr. Terry Barclay, and we had pretty close. I think we were like at 175. And this year we're so excited to bring Teepa Snow back.
Oh.
So she will be here October 1st, and I will have registration links and information.
Where will she be speaking?
She's going to be at Faith Bridge Church.
Okay.
So it's an all-day free CEUs for professionals. I think registration starts at 7:30. It gets done right around 4:15. She, I believe, is from North Carolina, and she speaks internationally.
Okay.
So we were lucky to get on her schedule. I remember when they first said that she was opening up some spots for 2024, and I heard about it like in December of 2022, and they said it's a first come, first serve. It opens up January 1 at midnight.
Wow.
And it's first come, first serve.
Were you on there hitting the refresh button?
I did. I learned how to send emails, save emails, and send out at a certain time. I learned how to do that. And
okay, yeah.
And
so it went right out at 12:01 a.m.?
It did. And so a couple days later, I got word that we were chosen.
Wow.
So then it was just about picking a date. And
yeah.
So
what are some of the signs that a person could look for that, I think there's a common perception that person gets to be in their 70s or 80s, and they tend to be, dad's a little more forgetful or
Sure.
something like that. When does it rise? What are some of the telltale signs that they're maybe more of a concern than just a little bit of routine forgetfulness that comes with age?
Right. If you what I like to say is that if you forget where your keys are, but you can retrace your steps and then find them, that's normal aging. That's what we all suffer from. I mean, even younger people
Sure.
our age suffer from that. We're busy and we're not paying attention, those kinds of things. But if you can't find your keys and you have no idea the last time you drove even. Okay. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a little bit more serious, and you can't retrace your steps, and then all of a sudden you find your keys in the freezer. That's a thing.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example of my husband, who does not have dementia. Well, at least I don't think he does. He works in Fargo, and he has an apartment in Fargo. And so every couple of days he drives over to Fargo. He brings his suitcase up and his lunchbox and everything, gets it all put away. And he could not find his wallet. He panicked. He called me. We could not find his wallet anywhere. He searched everywhere. And he was starting to make phone calls to cancel credit cards and bank accounts. He just absolutely couldn't find it. But he knew enough to retrace his steps. He called the Holiday gas station. Did I leave it there? So he remembered the places he'd been. The next morning he went to pack his lunch, and he opened the freezer, and his wallet was in the freezer. And because he brought in a whole bunch of stuff, including his frozen meals, and opened the freezer and put his meals in there, and his wallet was sitting on top of it.
Oh.
So,
yeah.
But he knew he lost his wallet.
But the fact was that he could go back and remember.
So that's
where
kind
he
of
had
normal.
been. Yeah,
some of the normal things that happen that people it might be a red flag, and they'll go, oh.
That would be an auto-diagnosis, right?
Yeah.
But what about something that would be noticeable by another person?
If you, especially like if somebody got lost, like they always run a certain route, maybe they're runners or walkers or whatever, and then all of a sudden they get 5 blocks from home and they literally can't remember how to get home, and that's never happened before.
Yeah.
Or
what a scary feeling that must be.
100%. And so there's little things like that, and it might not happen again for a long time, but it's like, oh, that was a little blip here. What's going on? Or they're continually forgetting dates, or they're working and they're an accountant, and all of a sudden the numbers aren't numbering anymore, or they're making a lot of mistakes or forgetting things. Those are just some little red flags that, maybe I want to get that checked out.
But it's a sum total of a lot of different things that
Yeah.
could cause a person to say, you know what, maybe I ought to go see the doctor or something
Correct.
like that.
Correct.
And then how do they go about diagnosing that? There's a series of tests, or how do they
There
do that?
are,
Yeah.
there are, but sometimes it is difficult. It's difficult. Like I said, doctors don't always have a lot of training in that. And so you kind of have to really be advocates for yourself. So, but usually if you go in and tell the doctor, I'm just kind of concerned about this, there is like what they call a mini cog. And there's a couple other tests like that. And it's just a quick little quiz, if you will.
Yeah.
And they'll do that and kind of determine, oh, yeah, maybe there's a little bit more. It used to be that they could not diagnose Alzheimer's until somebody died, and they'd have to do that during an autopsy. Now they can. And Dr. Terry Barclay talked a lot about that last year when he was here. They can even do a spinal tap now. They can do a brain MRI, and they can diagnose Alzheimer's a lot earlier now than they ever used to be able to. There's still not a lot of, there's no cure. There's not a lot of medications out there, but there's hope. There's hope. They're doing research all the time on it. And I am definitely not an expert in dementia. Jill would probably know way more. So if there's anybody out there that's really wondering, she would be the perfect person to call to ask questions.
Jill Graham's at Living at Home.
Correct.
Yeah.
Aside from your healthcare provider, I would always advocate, go to your healthcare provider. But I think raising awareness and reducing stigma are two of the goals that we also have, as well as having not just with a dementia diagnosis and what comes with that realm of our work, but also just as we age. Some people just they don't.
Yeah, because this is where you're Living at Home is not just a dementia
Correct.
Helping association, right?
Correct.
It's there's so much more to it than that, right?
Correct. Well, and if you look at the number of senior citizens that we have in our community, it is really astounding.
Yeah.
So the state,
have they been growing in numbers? And
huge.
Yeah.
Huge. So right now in Hubbard County, per the 2020 census, our population is, 21,344. And at that time, they were estimating, I believe, that something like 24.2% or some such thing, under 25% of Hubbard County residents were over the age of 65. In the last 4 years, that has grown, and the estimate right now is something in the range of 27.8% of our community right here in Hubbard County is age 65 and up.
Okay.
The statewide average is between 17 and 18%. We're one of the largest counties in the entire state with the highest population of seniors.
Why is that?
I think there's a lot of different, reasons why we think that. But one of the reasons is that who doesn't want to live in the Lakes area?
Right.
And a lot of people come up here because they vacationed up here for years. They love the area. They love the land. They love the lakes. And they retire here. Mm-hmm. And then they stay here. But then what happens when,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard it said before that that's a great plan, and that usually works for, like, they say, like 5 years or something like that, and then or give or
5,
take
10.
5, 10.
Depends.
And then things can start taking a turn after that, right?
I mean, everybody's health deteriorates over time.
Sure.
Well, not everybody's, but most of us, and so we just want to be there for people. So let's say you live out of town. We're very rural up here, and you can't drive anymore for whatever reason. Maybe it's temporary, but maybe it's permanent. Who do you call for a ride in rural Hubbard County? Because our city bus only goes 2 miles outside the city limits.
What is the bus that the
Heartland Express?
The Heartland Express, yeah.
Yeah,
is that affiliated with Living at Home or
no?
Okay.
No, that's the county.
Okay.
That's the county, but they only, or the city.
Yeah.
But they only provide rides within a 2 mile radius of Park Rapids of the
I
city
didn't
limits.
know that. Okay.
Yeah. So they do have a couple times a month, I think they'll take a bus of people if they sign up to go up to Bemidji and do some shopping and whatever up there. But we don't have a taxi service, we don't have Uber, we don't have Lyft, we don't have any other options for transportation for seniors. So if you can't drive, you're kind of stuck. So we just to put it in perspective of how many trips that we provide per year. This last fiscal year, which ended June 30th, we had 85 volunteers provide 7,000 hours of their time, and they drove just under 51,000 miles in service to seniors.
That's amazing.
And the bulk of that was for transportation to medical appointments, shopping, and errands. How do you go get a haircut or buy groceries if you can't drive? We served, and if you think about...
Well, at that point, though, doesn't somebody or the person himself or herself or their family say, gee, you're living out here, and you can't get anywhere. Isn't it maybe time to think about something different? But
they might suggest it, but
they can be stubborn.
They're very stubborn.
Yeah.
They're very stubborn, and if they've lived on their farm or in their home for most of their life, we hear this a lot. I am dying in this house.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They don't want to move, and so until they have to. I mean, there are certain circumstances where there's no choices anymore, but also there's no place for them to move to. Maybe they have to move in with family or at least downsize, come to town where they have public transportation then.
Yeah, I was thinking, an apartment or, yeah.
And there are caregivers for hire that you can hire, but most of them are busy and they're not overnight.
Is any of that get covered by medical insurance or Medicaid or anything like that?
It depends on if you have long-term care insurance.
Okay.
There's certain scenarios, and I'm not an insurance person, so I don't really know. But there are some things, and you can get like home care for a certain amount of time, whether it's skilled or homemaking, those kinds of things. But there's not a lot of choices out there. So what we like to have people too, and what this job did for me, is it made me open up those lines of communication with my own family. What is my plan? We talk a lot about healthcare directives, and that's great. And a lot of people now have healthcare directives because we've talked so much about it. But what about the rest of it?
Yeah.
We started a new program called the Solos. We started it in June, and they meet monthly, and there's like 25 that come to that program. But we use a toolkit developed by Linda Camp called the Backup Plan. And really it's almost like a workbook, and it goes through different scenarios. And the purpose of the Solos group is if you're in this situation where your kids aren't here anymore, maybe you don't have kids by choice, all those different things. Have you thought about, what if I have an ambulance ride to the hospital in the middle of the night and they discharge me? How am I going to get home? Do I have a neighbor to call? Do I have a friend to call? What if they don't answer? What's going to happen? And even a way to think about this, even in a different way, is what if I'm admitted and I have a dog at home? Right. Who's going to take care of my dog?
Yeah.
Who's even going to know that I'm here?
Right.
So this group, we're hoping within this Solos group that they kind of develop that thought process to develop that backup plan.
Who are the attendees of the solo group then?
Mostly single seniors.
Okay.
Maybe they're recently widowed or a widower. Maybe they're just single by choice.
That's why it's called solo.
Right.
Yeah.
But we also have a few couples that come. Their kids don't live here anymore, and they're working through this process together. Have I thought about my estate planning? I know that Sarah is going to speak or has spoken at the group as far as estate planning.
Sarah Swanson
from TSC Law Office. And so we kind of set that up for them so that it's just a thought process.
Yeah.
What am I going to do?
Yeah. And then sometimes just the thought process could lead you to certain conclusions that maybe you didn't start out, thinking about, right?
That's the thing, because, I remember when I first started working for Living at Home, and I was born and raised here in Park Rapids, as were my parents. So everybody knows what I'm doing all the time, right? And my husband worked out at the potato plant for 30 years. I did daycare for 21 years. Everybody knew us. And when I quit daycare, I went back to college, and then I worked in an office setting for 10 years and then started working for Living at Home. And people are always interested in you,
Sure.
So I'd be out and about in the community, and they say, well, Connie, what are you doing? I haven't seen you for a while. I'm like, well, I work for Living at Home. And they're like, what's that?
Yeah.
It's like you don't know until you need something that something even exists. And I thought to myself, I want everybody to know what living at home is, because we're all aging and we all have parents.
So what kind of community engagement activities do you guys,
what we're involved in?
Yeah.
Yeah, so through Living at Home, we have all kinds of activities that we do for living at home, but we're also very involved in like Senior Day at the Fair. So I actually Living at Home is the coordinator for that, the Senior Nutrition Council and the Senior Council of Hubbard County and the senior providers. And so we're just involved in anything that has anything to do with seniors.
Okay.
I've joined the Rotary. I'm part of the chamber.
You'll be president in 2 years.
I will be. Yeah. Scares the bejesus out of me, but we'll be okay.
No, we're gonna be fine. Yeah. And I will note on your Rotary that you jumped right in and took over the food service, and it's never been better since you took over.
Thanks.
So yes, thank you for that.
Thanks.
But and then you guys have a dinner too, don't you?
Yeah, we do a twice a year. We do a rib dinner. I think we're the only organization that does a rib dinner. That's the only dinner that we do. We do them twice a year. My husband and a couple volunteers are the cooks.
Oh.
And they do a fantastic
They do their own smoking
job.
and everything?
We don't smoke. They're not smoked ribs. They're country style pork ribs that they cook and we serve. We plan for 400.
Yeah.
And we serve anywhere from 335 to 400. So it just depends, but
oh, that's great. Yeah. And those are always at the Legion, right?
They are always at the Legion. Our next one is November 1st.
November 1st. And then, so what do you have in November? What's the other one?
June.
November and June.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How is your organization funded?
Well, that's an interesting question. We have many different funding sources.
Yeah.
I would say right now, probably 60% of our operating budget comes from state and federal grants.
Okay.
What people need to know about that is that those grants are not guaranteed, and they are competitive almost every year. So I'm writing grants constantly, and but I've kind of made it sort of a mission, if you will, to have a cushion, because my fear is, what if a grant goes away for a year? Then how are we going to have a program? And so I'm constantly thinking ahead like that. But the other 40% of our operating budget comes from individual donations, which we have great supporters, unbelievable supporters.
Yeah.
Our fundraisers, of course. We get donations from churches, women's and men's groups. Townships are great supporters of ours. A lot of times I'm asked to come and speak at different, like a PEO group or a different kind of group, and they almost always make a donation. It's not expected. I love, everybody has a superpower, I believe, and you're really good at something. Some people in my position would be really good at grant writing. Some people would be really good at, I don't know. I can't even give you all the examples that people are really good at. I feel like mine is community. I love being out and about in the community. So that's why I think since I've been the director, we've joined the chamber, we've joined the Downtown Business Association, I've joined the Rotary, all these different things so that we are visible out there in the community every single day.
What is your sort of personal motivation for being involved in this kind of work?
Well, I think it's grown and changed over the years. I think part of it is when you see the joy every day in the seniors that we serve and the appreciation for the help that our volunteers give them every single day, it just puts a smile in your heart and it makes you want to do more. And I love every single aspect of my job, from the grant writing to the home visits with seniors to fundraising. I love absolutely every single second of it. And our volunteers truly are second to none. We have, I believe, the best volunteers in the community. They just love it. And many of them will report back to us that they do it because it gives them purpose. Most of our volunteers are seniors themselves. They're retired. I love to talk about Darlene. She always gives me permission to say this. She is, I think this year, 97 or 98 years old, and she still provides probably drive 600 miles in service to seniors every month.
She's 97 and she does that?
She is a rock star. And one time I asked her.
Well, I would like to know, what does she eat?
Right. I don't know what she eats, but I'm telling you, one time she told us that she does 20 sit-ups, 20 push-ups, and 20 squats every single morning, and then she walks a lot as well. But she is a rock star, and I had the statistics written down. She's been with us for 21 years. I think she's driven over 25,000 miles in service to seniors in those 21 years.
Wow, she should be put up for an award or something.
She's won Outstanding Volunteer of the Year for Hubbard County.
Oh, I'm sure. Me. Yeah.
So,
you mentioned physical fitness. I mean, do you guys have programs where you try to get people to kind of get out there and remain active and do that sort of thing as a means to just, having a more healthy and lifestyle and longevity and things like that?
Well, it's interesting you should ask that because not really. We haven't had that kind of opportunity other than we have a couple trained people in Matter of Balance. But we haven't, since COVID, we have not given Matter of Balance classes, although there are other classes in the community for seniors. One is SAIL, used to be Silver. There used to be one called Silver Sneakers and the MOVE program, different things like that. But that is one thing that we're really excited about, the new space, the new building, because then we can have space to do those kinds of things.
Is there going to be like a gym or something like that in the building or something like that?
The plan is to have something like that because this building is right around 13,000 square feet.
Big, yeah.
And so half of the building is going to be 2 or 3 large senior activity spaces for senior center activities style, whether it's card groups or education or exercise or whatever, and then our offices and our caregiver closet will also be over there, which I really want to talk about as well.
Sure.
But then the other half of the building, we're hoping to form partnerships with some sort of a senior nutrition program to offer congregate dining possibly.
So there's a kitchen.
We're going to put a kitchen in. Wow. Whether we can afford to do that right away, I'm not sure, but the infrastructure will be there for it. And then we are also going to be having an adult day program in Park Rapids, which will be amazing.
That is something that's really needed.
The gals that run the adult day in Walker and Bemidji will be the ones that run the adult day here in Park Rapids.
Oh, okay.
So part of our renovation dollars was to develop all of these areas in this entire building so that we have a true senior community hub of sorts.
And so the adult day would be sort of like if the senior is being cared for by another individual who also has to work, like a day job or something like that.
Correct.
They could be brought there and they would be there. It's like daycare for adults, right?
It is. Yeah, for sure. So it'll be a wonderful opportunity. As a matter of fact, right now, currently, we have several clients from Park Rapids that are being bused to Walker for their program.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a long way.
Right. And to have one in our own community is going to be huge.
That's going to be
really
so great.
Excited.
Yeah.
We're hoping maybe by spring to have that open. It just depends on licensing because licensing can be up to a year out for that kind of facility.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So we're still waiting, the girls that are going to do it, the gals that are going to do it. I think they've started that process already. But, we've got a lot of renovating to do and different things. So it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when.
What is the Caregiver's Closet?
So the Caregiver Closet is a program we started, I bet it's been about 3 years ago. And it started with somebody calling us and saying, hey, I have a walker or a wheelchair. Do you know anybody that could use it? And we're like, maybe. How about you just bring it in here and we'll have it? And our landlord, Sarah Swanson, she's been very generous to let us have a shelf space, if you will, to put some things like that. Within a few months, we outgrew an entire almost office space of donated items that included wheelchair, canes, walkers, commodes, shower benches, crutches, you name it. And if it was a durable medical equipment, piece of equipment, it was coming to us, including like cases in some cases of incontinence products.
Wow.
And we were giving it out almost as quickly as some of that was coming in. And we quickly outgrew our space to the point now where we rent a 14 by 30 indoor storage space that is filled to the brim with things like hospital beds, walkers,
what a great way
wheelchairs.
to reuse those, or just, so that people have those.
100%.
Yeah.
We've actually outgrown that space. We don't have enough room for everything that we have. And everything that comes in is donated. Absolutely everything that comes in there is donated. And it all goes out free of charge for as long as somebody needs to use it.
So are you going to move some of that over to the new...
Everything will be moved.
Okay, so you're going to stop renting the storage space.
Correct.
And have it all be there? Mm-hmm.
Correct. The space that we have at the new building will be probably almost triple the space we have now.
Yeah.
So...
Oh, that's amazing.
And it'll have its own entrance, so it's really exciting.
Do you have any plans as to what you're going to call the building or anything like that? Or
not for sure.
The Connie Carmichael Center?
No.
Oh.
I think the overall building itself will be maybe something like Senior Connections.
Okay.
Because that's what it is.
Yeah.
We're connecting seniors to services and to build more relationship. I've always said with living at home, we are not just providing a service, we are building relationship.
Yeah.
We want long-term relationships with our clients. They come to us maybe in the beginning as a volunteer, and then
they become a client.
And sometimes they go back to being a volunteer.
Oh.
We get them through maybe a hip surgery or something.
Sure.
But yeah, we like to say that we are building relationships all along the way.
Can you give me an example that would be exemplary of sort of all the services that you provide, of a success story? Someone who came to you where maybe it seemed like it was going to be too daunting or hopeless and everything, and it got completely turned around, and now they're back in in a good state of mind, in a good
we get
place.
Countless letters of thanks that state things like, I don't know what I would do without you.
Yeah.
And in the caregiver realm of things, if you don't care for the caregiver, many times the caregiver is the one that ends up in crisis long before the one that they're caring for. So if we can help provide support, for that caregiver, give them some purpose and some social time as well.
Sure.
Socialization and isolation are huge in the senior population, and we see it even more so in the caregiver situation because they become more and more isolated.
Right.
We also now have our afternoon out program, which is styled after a traditional memory cafe. We offer it weekly for caregivers and the care receiver to come and have an hour and a half of togetherness. We always have exercise, reflection, music. Sometimes there's a project involved that they both can participate in.
Yeah.
It's also meant as a drop-in respite care program where they can drop their loved one off for an hour and a half and go run errands or go to the doctor or go buy groceries, whatever the case may be. Just have that hour and a half of time for themselves to do whatever that they want to do. That's growing by leaps and bounds as well. We went from having it monthly to now we have it weekly. Right now it's held at Riverside Church on Thursdays. But once we get into our new space, we'll have our own space there. Everything will be within our own space. So we're really excited. We appreciate all of the community resources that have allowed us to meet in their spaces. But we're really excited to have it all under one roof.
Another nice thing about that building is that the parking situation is going to be great.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, back in the...
How many parking spaces are there?
It's not painted, but back in the heyday of North Star, I think they were 130 or 140 employees strong.
Sure.
So we'll never have that many, in our building. I don't even know. I think our occupancy will be right around 100 total, but... the parking is not going to be. It's easy access, It's not a hugely traveled road that it's on. It's just going to be. It's like perfection. We're so blessed that
really.
Cindy Kelly
what a
thought
tremendous
of us.
Donation, as I said before. Yeah, that is just an incredible, generous gift. Okay, so we've been talking pretty much about living at home this entire time. So just can you give a brief overview of what the Senior Citizen Center is and does and what kind of programs are associated with that?
Sure. Well, it's interesting. There's a long story with the Senior Center. So I don't even know how many years the Senior Center has been active, but 10, 20, 30, 40 years back of history. And so what it mainly is groups that want to play cards and socialize. So on Thursdays, there's the bridge group. On Tuesdays, there was Mahjong and chess. So over the years that I've been involved with it, for the last probably 9 years, it's been, each day there's a card group of some sort there, and sometimes 2 or 3. But the current senior center is one large room, which doesn't always serve the purpose for having education events, because there's card players there. The card players are wonderful. That's what it's for, right? To have space for them to gather, for seniors to gather. And so in our new space, we're going to have 2 or 3 large rooms, so we can have many different things going on at the same time. So that's going to be a blessing. What happened was last year there was a report of a gas leak at the senior center. And what happened was the vent pipe on the outside was blocked and the furnace kept running. And so it created a gas leak, and it basically took out our furnace. Well, a furnace in that old of a building, it's probably going to be $20,000 to repair.
Sure.
So we were wondering, okay, well, how are we going to make this happen? There's grant money maybe to replace the furnace, but what about the future? Do we want something more with more space? Those kinds of things. And so then at the same time, we're wondering, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Because we couldn't meet there this winter. We had no heat.
Right.
So we had to close the senior center, and which is another reason why our senior coffee that we do every Wednesday is at a different church, and afternoon out is at a different church. And, some of all the card groups had to go to different areas, different churches or Northwoods Bank meeting room. Everybody is kind of farmed out, if you will. So we're wondering, what are we going to do? So as a board, we started talking about it, and then we talked to some of the members of the community or of the senior center, and what are we going to do about this? And then we had the offer of this great big building.
Yeah, so it just...
it all came together at the need for the senior center, the need for my blue sky vision for a senior hub, if you will, and then the grants that became available, just like... one of the state grantors that the grant manager said, Connie, I think your stars are aligning. And I said, I think they are, finally, so.
Yeah. And so you mentioned the kitchen there. Would that also be part of like the senior citizen or the senior center group? And like or I was thinking like, Bob's group, the senior nutrition, if they could coordinate that somehow with that too, to have some of the people that would otherwise receive the meal, or they call it Meals on Wheels or senior nutrition, and to have them come in and be able to take the meal there, as opposed to
that's one of our goals, is to work with senior nutrition. Right now, Lutheran Social Services is the nonprofit, LSS. They are the ones that provide the Meals on Wheels and those kinds of things. Right now, all the meals get cooked out of the Nevis kitchen. From what I understand, they're awesome. People are really enjoying that.
Yeah.
And we don't intend on taking that away from anybody, but we don't, in Park Rapids, we don't have a congregate dining spot where people can come and have a meal together.
Yeah.
As part of senior nutrition.
Yeah.
They can go to a restaurant and eat out as a group there, but we want something that for the people that don't want to go to a restaurant, just to offer that socialization and that well-rounded, well-balanced meal that they can come and enjoy a meal. Plus, the adult day needs a commercial kitchen. So, because they intend on cooking their own meals.
They have to, yeah.
I toured the Bemidji one and the Walker one. They have their own. No, Walker might get catered, but Bemidji has their own commercial kitchen. And so there's so much potential by having a commercial kitchen. Not that it's going to be restaurant style commercial kitchen. That's not what we're talking about.
No,
but
not fine dining or something. But
sure.
But the meals will be hearty and sufficient, I would imagine.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I wanted to get your thoughts on some matters relating to daycare in this town. I know because you got a lot of experience running daycares and stuff, and we talked to Mary Thompson and also more recently Derek Rickey, the people who are concerned with economic growth in our area, and I think they both highlighted the fact that there's a need for more daycare.
100% there is.
Yeah. So I guess you said that you worked in daycare for over 20 years and everything like that. Yeah. So what are some of the qualities that a person might have to run a successful daycare?
Well, they have to like kids.
Yeah. Okay.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things to think about when you're doing daycare. You have to think about, most people are doing daycare within their homes.
Yeah.
So you're sharing your home, and you're sharing possibly your kids' toys, depends on if you have its own space. You have to think that your kids are sharing their mom. Yeah. I did daycare for 21 years when my kids were babies on up, and we worked it out, and it was so rewarding. I mean, those kids became part of our family. You get to the point where you get invited to their graduations and their weddings and those kinds of things. And so I loved daycare. I did. I really enjoyed it until I didn't. Until I was like, okay, I've been doing this 21 years. I've never had a job in an office. I think that would be cool. So I went back to school. I think back when I was doing daycare, the daycare rules and regulations to get licensed were way, way different than they are now. But it's still doable. I mean, it's still very rewarding, and you can make a really good living at it. So if people, I think people really need to think about it. There's a lot of people that come and go out of daycare, and I think part of it is they don't think about the sacrifice that goes along with it.
Yeah. So can you, what do you mean by that?
Well, that,
sharing the home.
You can't just take a day off to go to the doctor.
Right.
Because you can't close daycare, because what are all these parents going to do?
Yeah.
Although a lot of the daycare providers now, my sister does daycare. She's done it for probably almost 25 years in the same house that I did daycare.
Oh, okay,
and we sold our house to them when we built our house 25 years ago out of town. And but we had she has a partnership with her husband. He's off a couple days a week during the week, and so he's on her license, as was my husband. Plus, I had a backup provider.
Oh, so he could be there.
Yeah, I think if you start a daycare with that in mind, who can I have for backup, or can I pay a helper?
Oh, that'd be a great thing to think about.
Right. I think if people would start thinking in those terms, you'd have a lot more longevity in it, I think. When I was doing daycare, the providers were in 15, 20, 25, 30 years at a time. Now I feel like that's not so much. And I've been out of it for so long, I really can't speak to the true statistics of that.
Yeah.
My sister would be a great one to have in on a conversation like that regarding daycare, though.
Yeah.
She would be really good. Because she knows it inside and out. She knows the rules inside and out.
Oh, the new licensing
rules. Even just putting kids to bed, you can't use a blanket anymore. You can't use this kind of crib, or you can't use that kind of playpen.
Yeah.
There's just so much there.
Yeah.
But if you love kids,
your
kids have a forever playmate. You got to think about it in terms of all the positives.
Yeah.
I'm a person that thinks with my cup half full all the time. Optimist, yeah. And so in everything I've ever done, it's like, is it joyful? Am I glad I'm doing it? And then take it from there.
How do you find, you mentioned before that you love every second of your day at work, and that's an incredible blessing right there, because they say if you love your job, you never work a day of your life, right? So how did you go about finding something like that, or what advice would you give to a young person who is looking for that that sort of special connection they would have with their work, so that they can also enjoy it as you do?
Well, I think you have to try different things to find out what your superpower is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And those can change. That can change. It changed for me. Right. So I thought I would be in daycare till I retired, but then I found out that I didn't want to be in daycare till I retired.
Yeah.
But I was in it for a really long time.
Yeah.
I think for young people, you just really need to know that the possibilities are endless. and try different things, but you have to give them an honest shot. You have to try them for a significant amount of time, because things might seem really hard in the beginning for different things that you're going to do. But then once you learn your way and everybody has different learning styles, everybody has different personalities, and you just have to learn to get along with everybody, and learn everybody's superpower. And especially if you become a leader, you have to find your coworkers' superpower, or your staff's superpower, or your volunteers' superpower, and then use those superpowers. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's part of being a leader is locating those things and those abilities and putting them to good use, and also improving the morale of the team as well.
100%.
Yeah. All right. Well, any last words of wisdom that you want to convey, or when it comes to that subject?
Well, I think overall, anybody who's listening to this needs to know that there is joy in life every step of the way, and only you can find your joy. And I think if people think about it that way, you can't rely on your daughter to bring your joy, or your son to bring your joy, or your spouse to bring your joy. You have to find it yourself. And if you're happy, everybody else around you gets happy.
Sure.
I just really feel like that's what we try to do with seniors too, is to create opportunity for them to have joyful experiences. And
there's a difference between happiness and joy too, I think. Happiness is it's based on external things that happen to you. As a matter of fact, that's the derivation of the word happy, is that things are going well, so I'm happy. But joy comes from something a lot more deep.
Kind of comes from within. So, and I do feel like some people just have to really work hard at that. And other people just seem to have it bubbling out of them all the time. And so,
well, you really do have to change your way of thinking, don't you?
You do. It is. It's a mindset for sure. And I'm telling you, in all the different things that I've ever done, I've worked with tons of different kinds of people. And I remember quitting a job once because the morale was so low, and I was happy every single day. Like, it would be July 23rd, and I'd go to the back room and say, "Merry Christmas, everybody." And they're like, "Oh, whatever." And I'm like, at some point, I just couldn't do it anymore. I just couldn't do that. I need a joyful experience every day.
And it's contagious too, right?
Hopefully.
All right. Today the guest has been Connie Carmichael, the Director of Living at Home and Secretary of Park Rapids Senior Center. Very excited about them moving into their new building at the old North Star Orthodontics. And what's the name of that road there that it's on?
Industrial Park Road.
And we should look for that to open sometime, maybe even by the end of the year.
Yeah.
And your next event is November 1st, which is going to be
No, our next event is Teepa Snow on October 1st.
Teepa Snow, yeah. And how do people sign up for that again?
I will have a registration link and flyer ready, hopefully by next week. Okay. And it'll be available with us. I can send it out, email to just about anybody. It will be going out. They'll be advertising in the paper and on the radio.
And people in certain professions will get credit for that.
Correct. Free CEUs for that. 6 hours of CEUs.
Okay. And then in November we have the rib dinner at November 1st. The rib dinner at American Legion.
Yes. Start serving at 4:30, and it's $15 for an adult.
All right.
And we do to-goes. People still like to get meals to go, and we do that as well.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Connie Carmichael. It's been wonderful having you here.
Thank you.
And look forward to working with you in the future.
Yeah, thanks. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thanks.